The Presidio means a lot to people. For so many people who served here, and for the community that surrounds it, it's always been a place of service. The Presidio itself has served the community. So there's a huge amount of feeling about what the Presidio is. And there was a sense among a lot of people that the Presidio really ought to be a place that solves problems, that takes all of the best that people can bring and applies it to the solving of social problems. And so that's the kind of thing that Fort Scott would be perfect for. Fort Scott is kind of the jewel on the hill. It looks out, opens to the Golden Gate Bridge. It's always been the sentinel, the protector of San Francisco. It has so much symbolism as a place of training, as a coastal artillery, coastal defense fort, right there on the edge of the continent. So it's a really beautiful and special place, and we've always known that there was a special future for it.
So we did a needs assessment. We talked to people around the country. We held focus groups, we had interviews, and asked, is there a need for a place like this to be dedicated to service? And if so, what would you do there? And so we began by talking to Shirley Sagawa, a national service expert.
So the service field is a really broad, diverse set of organizations and people who are committed to using service as a way to solve problems. But they're all doing it on their own in separate ways. So as we were talking to people about how could Fort Scott play a role, people talked about the importance of having a home, a physical home for service. Other people talked about the need for leadership, and especially leadership training, and that's missing in the field.
We absolutely need leadership development in the service sector. When you think about it, greater than 90% of the nonprofits in this country are under $2 million in terms of the amount of revenue that they generate. They're too small to do any kind of serious personal development. So to have an entity that can bring all of us together in one place is extraordinary. It's never been done before. And to have a place that really is a symbol for service in this country, to inspire people to continue to give themselves in service to this country, because it continues to remind people that that's really an integral part of who we are as Americans. And then the other practical side of it is that we have a place that becomes a repository for best practices, for research, for convening, to bring together all of this emerging talent, to provide insight and information and sharing to those young leaders that we know will be carrying the torch for us going forward.
The service movement, it's really a movement that crosses sectors, that involves the business community, the private sector, the public sector. And when I think about what would make sense for a home for the movement, it ought to be a place like that. And what I love about the Presidio Trust as playing that role is the innovation that I've seen here, the cross-sector engagement. There's so many aspects of the way the Presidio Trust does its business that's so simpatico with the service movement. It's a perfect fit.
We've got that background here. We're kind of used to not having boundaries between all these different sectors because the trust was an innovation in itself. It was a concept that now has become somewhat commonplace, but at the time was very new, which was that you could combine the efforts of government, private capital, nonprofit organizations to accomplish a public good. I think what we're talking about doing at the Presidio is really important for the country. To the extent that leaders, emerging leaders, can be part of this, can learn from it, to think innovatively, to think cross-sectorally and develop their own leadership skills, they are going to be well equipped to lead in the future. Big issues could be tackled here. Hunger, homelessness, education and the environment, even fiscal issues.
Service can tackle any issue. It really is about a collective will in a country or in a community to say there is a need, whether it's reading to a child, whether it's a blighted neighborhood, whether it's crime, whatever it is, we know that we can collectively come together and have a significant impact on it. We are absolutely better together.
I can see 20 years from now this being an absolutely vibrant center for all things public service writ large. This place could really be an important center for all of this community solutions around the country. I think that's really exciting.